Praetus, the fat guy, versus Ingrid, the legs. Will she ever stand up? We don't know. Praetus versus Ingrid. This is a question I've been asked all week since the Praetus banner was officially announced in the game, because it's very likely Ingrid is also coming in a week or two. You can see in just a day and a half, we are getting this Praetus Uridin banner. And I will tell you, as of the update, 2.5 days ago or whenever, you can always find, as soon as a banner goes live in the game file. So after an update, it's now been added into the active game file on the global server. So not drawing from the Asian server or the Forerunner server or even the test server. As soon as any banner does go live on the global server in the game file, me and Pink Jesus will be posting it here on my Discord, the Fast and Fastidious. We now have our own means to do it. Perhaps in the future, we've talked with Rokanchi and Panther. We'll collaborate with them as well. But for now, you'll just see we're just going to stay on top of it with what's coming on the global server. And we actually historically went back and posted every single big banner release quarter by quarter. And then starting with October, we did all the October releases, as you can see here. And then with November, we started doing the exact dates. So when things showed up in the game with their exact date of release. It's not perfect. It's not 100% of the time we get something it is guaranteed to show up, but typically the banner artwork in the live game file means it is very likely. So you can see with this latest update, just 3 new banners were added, and we know almost certainly all 3 are coming. We know for sure Praetus and Uridin, then we know Eris is coming, so very likely this is the Eris and Cetrum banner, but then the key thing here, the Ingrid banner with Ardia is now officially here in the global game file, so I think we can now really start to think Praetus versus Ingrid. Praetus versus Ingrid. Big old belly, big old legs. Who's it gonna be? People want to make an informed decision. Tomorrow I'll do my should you summon video for Praetus and Uridin. Then we'll get into a lot of like nitty gritty of, well, what awakening is your Praetus? Do you already have Ingrid? This, that, and the other. And we'll do the same whenever Ingrid's banner comes along, even though obviously that will be after the Praetus banner, but talk about that kind of specificity, those minute details. But for now that we know almost certainly both these heroes are coming and we'll all have an opportunity to probably make a choice, and we got to make it soon because Praetus is in just a day and a half, I thought it would behoove us to really systematically go through it and make a comparison. You know, content by content, who is the best? They are 2 of the top 3 heroes in the game. In my opinion, it's these 2 guys and Eloin. These guys, being ancient exclusive legendary lords, are in a different group than Eloin, certainly. And we're kind of getting a situation with this Christmas, New Year's, Frostfall Jamboree event period that they're going to go head to head in our decision making. So I figure systematically we can go through, I made this Google sheet, and we can kind of do Ingrid versus Praetus, go through each piece of content and just fill in who the winner is. So for Guild Boss 1, maybe it's Ingrid. For Guild Boss 2, maybe it's Praetus. I'll tell you, that is how it's going to work. At the end of the day, we add up all our I's for Ingrid, all our P's for Praetus, and we see, you know, just very mathematically, or very, you know, kind of a boring numbers by numbers thing, who comes out on top, who is better. And then I'll give a nice summary of my thoughts and what it all means. Spoiler alert, I do think Praetus overall is the better hero, but undoubtedly there are things that Ingrid is better at, and she's just a phenomenal, phenomenal hero. So without further ado, Praetus versus Ingrid. Let's go.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
So this is a video all about how good these 2 heroes are compared to each other in respective pieces of content. If you don't know how these heroes' kits work, definitely go check out a bunch of my other content. I've got tons of stuff on Praetus, many showcases, and then a full ultimate progression guide showing him in all 3 gear raids. And then for Ingrid, I've never made a guide on her, but I've covered her a lot around the anniversary. If you want to go back to like June and July, just kind of explaining how she works. There'll be a lot more content on Ingrid once her banner gets closer. But I just want to tell you from the outset, the purpose of this video is not to teach you about these heroes in terms of the mechanics of their kits, breaking down how they work, all their skills and awakenings. It's really just saying at its core, who's better at different things. So without further ado, you can see in the example, I filled 2 things in, and And I do kind of stand by those. I gave both of them an S in Guild Boss 1. This is my tier list on Fastidious.gg, best website in the realm. You will see, though, or you won't see, but I'm going to tell you, though, I definitely do think Ingrid is better here. In my mind, she's like borderline S plus for Guild Boss 1. The reason I don't want to give her S plus is because she's not meta, not at all. However, if you have her, she likely could be like your meta, depending on where you are in the game, because she does lord. So she's an arbiter, right? So Praetus can lord over her, but she is also a legendary lord of the Watchguard, a faction that has gotten so much attention over the past couple months with buffs. You know, they buffed the lord skills of the epic lords in the Watchguard, or it's just Ein, and then the legendary lords, which at the time were Leia, but is now Leia and Ingrid. Just a big glow up to that faction. They've added tons of new powerful heroes, such as Kagiri, of course, Lucius. More are coming, Sun Wukong, Eris. We just are getting Callista now. So not that Callista's on the level of Ingrid or Lucius or Kagiri or anything like that, but you understand what I'm saying. It's a very ever strengthening faction. And because of that, I think it's a more appropriate faction for Guild Boss 1 than the Arbiters. As amazing as Arbiters are for like all content, and certainly could make them work on a 50k team, it's not going to be as good as Watchguard. However, I don't give any of them S plus because, as I said, in my opinion, they are not neither of these factions, Watchguard or Arbiter, are in the top desirable factions you want for this. It's not the meta way to do it, but Ingrid would be better suited than Praetus. So I'd say Nightmare, Piercer, Infernal, those are the three best for sure. And then Ingrid with Watchguard, I mean, it can be right there, but it's just a little more niche. However, Ingrid certainly does get the edge, so we'll give this an I. And maybe we'll make that blue. Ingrid is blue. And then maybe we'll make Praetus purple, because his lovely new skin is purple. What an interesting skin, Moonton. Great job. Now we've got Guild Boss 2. Again, very evenly matched here, at least in terms of the rating, but this is a no-brainer, right? Obviously, Praetus takes this one home. If I could give triple S, I don't give triple S if you're wondering for specific pieces of content, only for overall. It's kind of like a gold star next to your name. 5 lords get it, 5 non-lords get it. But you'll see, Praetus, even though these both say S+, and Ingrid certainly is S+, for Guild Boss 2, Semra, Apocalypse, Titanic Ruins, Praetus is at a whole nother level. Very arguably the best hero in the game for this. His true damage just shreds. He lords over maybe the best faction, if not the second best faction for it. Certainly the easiest faction to use. Just completely designed for this crazy, crazy stuff. He's unbelievable in Guild Boss 2. Ingrid, I will say, is very underrated in Guild Boss 2. Not to say people don't rate her highly. They rate her incredibly high. But I think it's slept on how versatile she is. Watchguard is an incredible faction for Guild Boss 2. I would say a top 4, maybe 5, which I guess that's like half the factions in the game. But it's in that group of extremely usable, extremely high-end factions in Guild Boss 2. If you don't believe me, go check out Fabu's #1 score in the world. Over 400,000 mech fragments. He has every hero in the game. He chooses to run Watchguard over Arbiter. I will say that is Watchguard using Leia, because Leia is crazy for Guild Boss 2 as well. But it's not to take away from the fact that easily an Ingrid-led Watchguard team could get you 120k and beyond. Fantastic she is. And then she slides very nicely into an Arbiter team. So that versatility of being able to be a non-Lord as an Arbiter and on a 120k plus team, or being a Lord of the Watchguard and leading a 120k plus team, a beautiful thing. She still is tremendous, but without a doubt, Praetus gets the W here. Now, Gear Raid 1. This one's kind of a no-brainer. Praetus absolutely works. Arbiters work. They are slightly off meta, I would say, mostly just because you're not going to have all the ones you need. But even just like a Praetus Pelagios and Valkyra would be plenty to destroy this. A Praetus Constance Valkyra, a Praetus Constance Pelagios, all that would work. But there's a lot of need for a bigger fleshed out roster. Ingrid can do this whole frickin' thing by herself. Again, if I could give someone triple S in a piece of content, now it would be Ingrid's turn to get it in Gear Raid 1. Arbiters can work, not your top option unless you have tons of heroes. Ingrid alone can do it, doesn't even need a whole faction. So this one, to me, is very obviously going to go to Ingrid. Now, Gear Raid 2, this one very obvious. Again, you're going to see it's not everyone's going to be as head-to-head as some of this early stuff with Guild Boss 1. Gear Raid 2, Ingrid can work, but she's not going to solo burst it all down unless she's got the craziest build, which is possible, or she's Awaken level 3, which is very hard to get. And congratulations if you have that. I will say, if I pull either of these guys, they probably will be instantaneously A3. I'm sitting on 6 soul stones, baby, once I use those reset books. But you'll see Praetus S+ for this. I'd say he's probably a high S in terms of being able to clear it himself. He gets the boost up, though, to S+ because he's the single best hero in the game once you've beaten it to speed farm it. He is a total cheat code. I've got 2 pieces of content on it. You guys can go check it out. I was on top of that the second we realized it was possible, just bursting down the boss before he's ever even thinking about moving minutes later. So you can, it really speeds up your run. It's really phenomenal. He's great here. Ingrid is like, okay, really not a top option at all. That A is plenty. So clearly this one now goes to Praetus. Looks like we're alternating. Gear Aid 3. This may surprise some people. Earlier on, Ingrid can do a side, and even on 19, she probably could take care of the left side. But her AoE is a little inconsistent. The magic damage falls off a cliff. So it's just not going to be nearly as good, and you're taking advantage of like the true damage and the radiant erosion. Radiant erosion actually only really coming from the single target stuff. All in all, it's not the greatest thing in the world. These guys have very high magic resistances in Gear Aid 3, so you don't really want a hero like that. Praetus, I do think, is an excellent option because he can do, a lot of times you don't run 2 lords for this. So he can just do a lot of extra bursty true damage that can save the day for you just by being Praetus and not even being on the field. He also synergizes pretty well with a couple usable heroes. Valkyria is great to tank in the middle and give you a little bit of damage. It's not much, but it's something. Keep in mind, she also still does magic damage. When she is ulting, she is able to hit aerial units, so that's something she can tank in the middle if you don't have someone like Arrogance or Araka. And then I would also say Constance is maybe the single most underrated hero in the game for Gear Aid 3. She is phenomenal there. She is so good. So a Praetus and a Constance that could easily push you over the edge if you're close, but not yet there. And one of those 2 heroes, Praetus, you don't even have to deploy. You can see I'm rocking him as an S+ here. That's because he's so good in getting you to the end. When it comes to 20 and especially 21, it's hard to make him work. But as you'll see in my progression guide, he absolutely still does work. So I think he's earned that S+ because he's for his specific help you snipe a couple guys at the end role. If you've got the whole other team cooking, it's really something, and it really does help. So I really do like him there. Obviously, I like him more than Ingrid. Praetus is going to get the dub here in our comparison when it comes to Gear Aid 3. Gear Aid 4, you're going to see it's kind of the Praetus show. I was hopeful we could make Ingrid work for Gear Aid 4. Technically, you can on some of the lower stages, but later on, because though it does get wider when she does her AoE blast, because her range is like one straight line in front of her, and there's no way to line that up for the bottom row or even the top row, she's just really suboptimal with that range. You can make stuff work. She can be kind of cool. She can be an auxiliary piece to help you push on your progression up. But when you reach those later stages, you're not going to be thrilled with her. She's not so special. Praetus, on the other hand, I do think is kind of phenomenal for this. He can clear the bottom by himself, but it takes crazy stuff. The way I like to use him really is just that extra little bit of damage with the Praetus button. And then certainly if you've got like Pelagius, who can absolutely do the AoE you need, you can have Praetus as the Lord, get Pelagius going, and then Praetus does some bursts. He also can Lord over Constance, who, by the way, I think is the most underrated hero in the game for Gear Aid 4. I just started using her in like every single Gear Aid 4 Gear Dungeon 1 takeover that I do. If you guys want, you can see that. I will say Ingrid also could Lord over her. That's a nice overlap since Constance is Arbiter and Watchguard. But I think that's a great combination, and Constance makes it so easy. So in general, I do really like Praetus here. As I explained it, I do think I'm going to bump him down to S. I don't think he's a definitive S+ for that, but certainly I do think he is definitively better than Ingrid. And it's a nice moment now to discuss the fact that, like, hey, it's kind of coming into view, right? Praetus is better at PvE. That's a fact, okay? Praetus is better at PvE than Ingrid. Let's all digest that for a second. There's a couple places where Ingrid shines. She's great at PvE, but Praetus is God for that. Gear Aid 5, it's no change here. I really like what he can do with the Praetus button. You're going to hear me go back to the Praetus button a lot. You don't even need to deploy him. So when you're cycling him on and off, he can still be helping a ton. And then he can do like that Nocturne roll in the bottom left. I'll say slightly worse than Nocturne, but he can do it. The fact that he can do it, he can lord over a decent faction for this, though not a top faction at all. And he's got the Praetus button. I really like him for this. I think he's very underrated in Gear Aid 5. I think he is really cool. Obviously, he gets the win over Ingrid here yet again. AMR now, you'll see surprisingly high for both. Both can be really bursty. Ingrid, if you go to single target mode, can help you just like get Salazar down really, really, really quick. Or I guess it used to be Salazar. Now it's the big monstrosity boss. Really nice. Actually, she is in need of an S. I do realize as I say that because the introduction of the new stages, where I do need to still update this for every single hero. The stages 19, 20, 21, and 22. In her case, 20 and 22. She is completely phenomenal for that bottom spot. If you've ever seen me use Dahlia for it, Ingrid is probably close to as good, if not just as good as Dahlia. Doesn't have the slows, but does have more damage. Really good. Still not give her an S+, because she's not so broken for it, and she's kind of useless before, besides the burst strategy I was talking. Praetus, again, I love. He's got some great heroes he lords over for AMR. Valkyra, Jira, Constance, all that stuff. Again, Ingrid also has Constance. Combine that with the fact that you can time things out really nicely for some crazy bursts in your progression 1 through 18 when it comes to using the Praetus button and just killing the monstrosity boss. And then later on, super viable, can do all the nice single target stuff you'll need in 20 and 22, especially in like that left side up in the corner. Just phenomenal, just great. Both good heroes, but it's Praetus once again. All right, now Void Rift and Campaign. This may be where it looks to you, the viewer, that it's going to get tight again between these two because they both get S pluses in these two categories, Void Rift and Campaign. However, it only appears that it is going to be tight because let me tell you, Praetus does win by a pretty large margin. We'll start with Ingrid. Her endless range on her big AoE blast is really strong. The toggle between AoE and single target is crazy. Her DPS is as good as ever. She's one of the best heroes in the game for Void Rift and Campaign. Praetus is the single best hero in the game for Void Rift and Campaign. His endless range that comes with his Verdict Praetus button is insane. It's, as always, way too overpowered, overtuned, punishing true lightning damage everywhere on the map, and it is endless, right? He can hit anywhere. So in these two specific game modes, you can abuse that more than anything. There's so many difficult Void Rift stages that you can just mindlessly GG with Praetus, because he kind of makes you circumvent any strategy that would have been needed because you're just picking off units and enemies before they even get to move. It's really insane. Campaign is the same story. Again, Ingrid is phenomenal at this, but Praetus is broken. Completely broken. There's no content in the game maybe better suited for him being a cheat code than this stuff. I think that's probably enough said. So let's just give him 2 more victories. You can see we've got a slight runaway now. Let's go to faction trials. Obviously, Ingrid wins here. There is no Arbiter faction trial, so Praetus cannot participate. Ingrid is an Arbiter, but she's also a Watchguard, and she's unbelievably good for Watchguard faction trial. Would you believe it? The ancient exclusive Legendary Lord is good at her own faction trial. Mamma mia. Okay, that ends our normal. We did our like kind of main boss, guild boss content. Then this was our normal PvE content. Now we're entering our monthly Immortal Codex content. Kicking it off with Conqueror. Ingrid is just unusable here. The only way you would use her is like if you were running, I guess now it would be like Callista and maybe pick up Eris or something. You're doing some kind of strategy like that and you're using her strictly as just a Lord. I think for a lot of people in your progression, that might be nice, but her skill is not really tuned for AoE at all. It's about hitting the same target. So you'd probably just go for Ein because that's another melee body you can use. In Conquer, you cannot even deploy her. Praetus, though, gets an A. Why is that? The button. It's always the button. He's also the lord of a couple great units for this. Constance, phenomenal. Granted, Ingrid has her as well. I'm going to have to say that a lot. Jira, very solid for tanking. It's pretty good. And then Valkyra, one of the absolute best heroes in the game for this. Combine that with the fact that he's not a total L by bringing him, even though you can't deploy him, since you do get to whack that button. He's not good at it. You know, he's not an S here or something, but he's certainly usable to help people reach some decent marks. So Praetus gets an A, and he definitely gets the edge here. In Conqueror, Healer, you're not using either of them. There's probably a case that somehow you could use Praetus, similar to how people use Silas, but it would be much worse effect, and it would be a waste of a slot. So they both just get a dash here. So we'll just let's just nix this whole thing. We don't need that. For sticks, Ingrid is good. If you put her in single target mode, there's a little bit of bursts with some multi-hit action when she does her flurry of her purple stars or whatever those things are. It's good. The damage is definitely good. We like it. The faction is okay. Praetus is the best burst damage in the entire game for Styx. He was the best hero on every single comp forever until Yovar. Yovar is the meta king for this, but Praetus is still going to make his appearance in the top 100 teams, and without a doubt is maybe even easier than Yovar, the easiest way to just get triple S, because the burst damage you're getting in between is lunacy. When the boss, whenever you break those shields, even if you only do it a couple times, you're in those vulnerable states. You've got him and at least one or two other arbiters. You smack that button when it's got 3 load ups in it. Final verdict, lightning everywhere, insanity. Another W for Mr. Prey. Let's soldier on. Tank, obviously, neither of them will be used. Let's take that out the same way we did for healer. Now we have got Arbiter Frost. They're both S plus here. Praetus gets the edge because his faction is better for it. I'd say Praetus is the second best comp you can run after a Soul Cadence comp. So really, really good. Running Arbiters is probably second to just Infernal. There's something here with Ingrid, but if you're really using Ingrid here, you're running her with Praetus or Elysia. You're running her as an Arbiter. So it's a pretty clear W, I believe. Again, some change I will make. I do think I want to bump Ingrid up to an A+ for Torrent. She's excellent for Torrent. She's only like tremendous once you have some awakenings in her, but once she's A3 or above, then she's like S+. So I feel like she's an A hero for Torrent. She's good. There's a little bit of true damage going on, but it is magic damage, so she does fall off later on. However, once you really get her cooking, and you get A1, and then certainly you get A3 and above, she's phenomenal. So I think she's an A hero for here. We're giving her a plus. We're giving her a little bump up because of how amazing she eventually will be with awakenings. Praetus, super not a top option here. He can lord over Pelagios, who's quite good for this with all of Pelagios' true damage and radiant erosion. But it's not that good. He can't reach the boss at all, so you're really just relying on the button. There's too many targets later on for the button to make a huge difference. He's a solid B. I think that's fine. Let's get Ingrid back on the board over here. And now we have got PvP. Is this Ingrid's time to shine? Well, I will tell you, all things equal, you have everything in this game. You got everybody. Without a doubt, Ingrid is the best PvP hero in Watcher of Realms. However, if you don't have everything, that might mean you don't have Praetus. And a lot of the craziest Ingrid stuff possible is on the back of this fatso over here. So not to say she's not an absolute ridiculous superstar in PvP without Praetus, but to be the broken reason a lot of people don't touch arena issue, I do think has something very significant to do with Praetus. Right off the bat, I'll tell you, I was waiting to do it here. We are going to bump her up to an S in the single target. I don't think I want to give her S+, because as great as she is, I don't think she's a definitive meta. But everything else you see, she's phenomenal. Let's go through it piece by piece. Guild Wars, I think, with or without Praetus, doesn't matter. Ingrid is completely and utterly busted for Guild Wars. Of course, they can always adjust maps and try to make her worse. But at the end of the day, occasionally, I think some of us, when we're in later into the game, higher-end guilds, I'm going to use myself as an example. If I need to, if I'm late to my attacks, as I always am, and I have to do something, I will fight a Praetus team. I will never fight an Ingrid team. She is the queen of Guild Wars. She is so, so good. I don't know what just happened there. So clearly she's going to get the win there. Now it starts getting really intense. Well, actually, this is AoE and anti-air will get really intense. Single target, like I said, I think Ingrid's great. I think you can go super far with her in single target. I think Praetus, that's the best comp. It's him and Valderon. Those are the scariest comps by a mile. That is every top single target team. I don't think there's that much more to say. You could run Ingrid with Praetus if you want, but the actual craziness and the number one headache of single target, it's Valderon and Praetus. And in my opinion, I think I might even still give Praetus an edge there. He is lunacy. It's neck and neck, though. It's neck and neck. AoE, this is probably our biggest toss-up we've got. They're both really, really good. I would say Ingrid is going to get the win here because she's less other hero dependent. Her best situation will be next to Praetus and then just doing a whole bunch of wackiness. However, even without him, she can be really, really strong here. And for Praetus to do it without her, he's going to need a lot of help from not a lot of help, but he's going to need a couple other arbiters to really get the whole thing going. Both phenomenal options, but for me, I think it's pretty clear Ingrid is going to snag this one. And I'll just put it in already. I think Ingrid gets anti-air as well. The fact that she's got that endless range and it's so brokenly strong when she's in AoE mode that she's just wiping out all of the flyers before they even get to move. It's the ultimate frustration. I will say I also avoid Ingrid and anti-air like the plague. Praetus is still really good at it. He is. They're great together, but Ingrid does get the edge here. So there you go. Let's tally it up. Let's get our totals. All right, so Ingrid beat Praetus in 4, 5, 6, 7 categories. She got 7, and then Praetus got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 categories. So you can see Ingrid still like kind of held her own because I do think she has the edge over Praetus in PvP. But at the end of the day, I think there's more things where Praetus is right behind Ingrid in PvP than where Ingrid is right behind Praetus in PvE. You know, the sheer number is higher over here quite clearly, as you guys can see. Unbelievable pairing of heroes. Phenomenal, phenomenal. But in my opinion, Praetus is the best. And it's really Praetus and Elowen. Those are the two best heroes in the game. Best DPS, best Lord is Praetus. Best support hero is Elowen. That's the end of it. The next name out of anyone's mouth, I think, when you talk about the third best hero, it should be Ingrid. But this is where we stand. Like I said, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of, but I already have Praetus, or I already have Ingrid, or I have this one at this awakening, this one at this awakening, this, that, and the other, that will all come in my Should You Summon video for Praetus and Uridin tomorrow, and then we'll revisit it when we do our Ingrid and Ardia Should You Summon. At the end of the day, though, in this clash, this head-to-head, who is better? In my opinion, very clearly it is Praetus. That is not to take away of the potency and the craziness of Ingrid. I think in my heart of hearts, I still might rather have Ingrid because she's so cool, she's so unique, and she'd be such a headache for so many people. But if we're being completely objective, Praetus is the king. He is the Papa Francesco of this game. Papa Pope, big fat belly. Praetus is numero uno. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I have been Fastidious. If you like this stuff, please give it a big thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe, hit all notifications, share it with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Ugh, voice crack. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Fastidious.